Leeds versus Middlesbrough at the Riverside never fails to be an entertaining game. That 1-0 scoreline does not paint a picture of what the game was actually like. I honestly feel like I'm only just calming down. So much happened, so much going on. Could have been a red card, could have been 2 goals for Leeds. Middlesbrough wasted a lot of chances, but I want to start with one of the worst EFL referee performances I have ever seen in my entire life. Twice Leeds scored goals that were clearly onside and they got given as offside. Admittedly, when you win the game, it doesn't feel as annoying, as stressful. However, if we were to draw or go on to lose that game, that could have been 2 decisive moments in our season. I'm not calling for VAR in the Championship. I think that VAR in the Premier League, the way it's currently implemented, is a bit of a joke and actually takes away from the game. However, we need competent referees. Come on. There's no way that we can be getting decisions that easy wrong. Week in, week out. For the first goal, it was Tanaka, a cross into the box. He finishes it at the back post. Linesman gives for offside. There was no other players obstructing his view. Tanaka was clearly onside. There is absolutely no excuse for a decision like that. Turns out it's also a linesman that has given multiple 3 offside goals against Leeds United in situations where the player wasn't offside just this season. Actually mind-boggling. And then the second one is Patrick Bamford in the second half comes on, scores a fantastic finish from him, a fantastic ball from Willie Nonto, I believe it was, and it gets given as offside. Again, absolutely no excuse. There was nobody blocking the linesman's view. You can literally see the line on the edge of the box, and Patrick Bamford is closer to that than the defender by a fair distance, and he still gives it as offside. How can you make a decision that bad? It even flicked to the linesman at one point and he's there shaking his head. He will have known, he'll have been told in his earpiece that decision's wrong, or he'll have at least heard it from the crowd. Both of them absolutely clueless and useless. A truly disgraceful performance. However, the one goal that did count came in the second minute, and of course it was that man Dan James. Dan James is really the only one of our attackers that's producing at the minute. Our entire front line seems a little bit weak. I suppose if those goals would have gone in today, you would say Solomon got the assist for the first Dan James goal, so he would have had 2 if the Tanaka one counted. Nonto's actually come on and impacted a couple games. But Dan James, a great run from Solomon, who picks it up on the edge of the box, fires it across. Dan James somehow gets in front of the Middlesbrough defender, and it kind of just bobbles off his shin, off the crossbar, into the back of the net. I am not bothered how it goes in, as long as it goes in. However, scoring in the second minute, and then the game remaining that scoreline for the remainder of the fixture, caused me unbelievable amounts of anxiety, because on Middlesbrough, they had plenty of chances, and it seems to me that they're missing an out-and-out clinical finisher, because if they had that in their team, they would have definitely got a couple of goals today. A few different players had opportunities. Azaz had one where he had about 10 years in the Leeds box in the second half and didn't even manage to get it on target. Iniacho looks absolutely garbage. Everything I saw from him today was atrocious. I believe in January, Middlesbrough signed him. And I was actually hoping that Leeds signed him as a backup because Patrick Bamford is constantly injured. But looking at those two's contrasting impacts on the match today, I am very happy we didn't get Iniacho. What a stressful... I actually feel like I can't breathe still. Middlesbrough actually played the ball around very nicely, especially in the Leeds half. They seemed to be very calm and composed, managed to pass it around the edge and even inside of our box in moments, which is quite rare. We have one of the strongest defences in the league, especially when you take Meslier's mistakes out of it, then we concede very few goals. I thought Middlesbrough looked good. I actually think, as a whole, Carrick should be doing much better with the squad that he's got on his hands, because Middlesbrough are now only just in the playoffs on goal difference, I believe it is. They should be a solidified playoff team, realistically. I know the Championship is always close and you've kind of got the top 3 that are miles apart this season, but Middlesbrough should be up and around it, and you could easily see them bottling it towards the end of the season. Carrick clearly plays quite attractive football the majority of the time. However, I've seen other games of theirs this year. When they played Sheffield United away, they weren't very good there. They didn't look particularly exciting. They fumbled a lead. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. I never really see the Riverside that full though, so at least they all showed up today to see Patrick Bamford. When that man came on, he needs to start. It got to the 65th minute today, and I was thinking, why is Perrault still on the pitch? He hasn't had a goal involvement in 7 league games now. I appreciate throughout the start of this season, he's been very good in terms of goals and assists, but that man looks like he's running in Marmite. He doesn't even look like he's running in treacle. It's Marmite, some thick, slodgy stuff, and he just cannot get through it. He has no pace. He can hold the ball up a little bit sometimes, but even his finishing recently, his passing play in the final third just hasn't lived up to expectations. I'd love to see Bamford start a couple games, and if you've seen this channel before, then you will know that that is not my usual rhetoric. By the way, like and subscribe if you are a Leeds fan or a Championship fan. I'm actually Bamford's number one hater a lot of the time. I think he can't hit a barn door with a machine gun. However, Pirot has been just as bad, if not worse. So we may as well give Bamford a go, haven't we? There was a run of games last season when Bamford was fit and starting that he was getting a goal or assist pretty much every game for about 8 or 9 games in a row. Why not give him a go? We need someone up there. It's clearly our wingers that are the more dangerous goal scorers at the minute, especially Dan James, and still looks to be Willie Gnonto when he comes on. When you've got Solomon and you've got Ramazani as options from the wing, why not have Bamford on to hold it up, try play a few passes through, because Pirot just isn't cutting it at the minute. Another player that came on today and finally had some extended minutes on the pitch was Isaac Schmidt, who looks quick, looks sharp in moments, defensively didn't look amazing. However, when you've played so few minutes, it's very hard to judge someone. But in terms of the starting lineup, I think the defence was really, really good today. Rode on with a couple of important challenges. Byram could have been sent off, in my opinion. I'll be honest, just as I'm honest about the offsides, if that was against Leeds and a player slipped, lost the ball, and clearly purposely brings it back in with the hand, I'd be saying it's a red card. So Byram probably should have been sent off for that. However, he wasn't. He had a few good defensive moments. He even managed to overlap at one point and have a good attacking moment. He's a solid option from the bench. Not sure he'd be solid enough if we are to get promoted. However, in the Championship, he's a decent option, isn't he? Ampadu fits in nicely at centre-back. I actually think the Tanaka-Gruev partnership in midfield was much better than having Ampadu and Tanaka. I think that those two don't complement each other too well. I know that on paper they are undoubtedly our best centre midfielders. I just think as a pair, it don't work. I'd rather have Ampadu and Rothwell, Tanaka and Rothwell, Tanaka and Gruev. Tanaka, speaking of which, actually had a pretty poor game today. I would go as far to say it's his worst performance in a Leeds shirt. He's played a lot of games, went on the international break with Japan. Maybe we can forgive him for one off game, given the immense season he's had. Maybe it's time for him to get a rest. Next game, it could be a case of, can we throw Wober in at centre-back and have Ampadu and Rothwell as the centre mids? I think Ampadu and Gruev would be way too defensive, but maybe Tanaka needs a week off. I'm not sure he'll get it, given the run of fixtures and given how important they are. I thought Aronson, who came back into the starting lineup, was okay. He didn't really do anything wrong. Maybe some of his progressive play wasn't the best, but he was constantly running around, putting pressure on Middlesbrough, winning fouls where he could. I thought he did a good job. I thought he did a better job today than Willie Gnonto did as an attacking mid against Luton. I know this is just one game and one example. I'm not saying that he's a better overall player. I'm just saying maybe in this final run-in, we should stick with him and keep bringing Gnonto on as a winger where he can clearly have a little bit more impact on the game in an attacking sense. Apart from that, happy, de-stressed, back at the top of the league. I've been gone for a few weeks. I've not made any videos for I think about 30, 40 days. I was actually travelling through Japan. Just a coincidence that we have been awful in that period, I swear to God. But I'm back now. I'll be making lots of videos towards the end of the season. So make sure you stick around. There'll be playoff predictions, whether we're in them or not. There'll be more reviews of the Leeds games as they roll in and other Championship games at the top end of the table and maybe even some at the bottom end of the table. Let me know if you want to see me talk about Luton, Plymouth, Stoke, etc. because it is entertaining and it's very tight in the Championship. What an entertaining season, as it usually is in this league. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe and I'll catch you again soon. Peace.